take. Um, I learned it's called Wycinanki, what I do. It's a Polish paper cutting folk art. And then when I was a kid, I learned it in the 90s when the internet really didn't exist. I didn't take commissions back then. I just kind of made it and did art shows and stuff like that. So I had the experience with that, but not with commissions. And when I was 18, I got a job working for Trader Joe's. They employ artists in all of their stores that make all the little signs and big signs and everything, which was a very cool job to get when I was 18. And when I was doing that, I gained a skill that is very useful for working with clients in any capacity, which is learning to hear people that don't really know about art or who aren't really creative types describe to you what they want and interpreting that to figure out what they really want. And that's kind of a skill that you can really kind of hone over time, but it's something that you will learn if you're working with clients and doing commission work. So that's something that has served me well. I actually did a commission when I was probably about 19, making chalkboards. He found out about me from Trader Joe's, and he was a nightmare client. It was his business, a burger shop he was opening. I did a bunch of stuff for free for him. I'll talk about it a little bit later when I'm talking about things you shouldn't do. um, but I learned a lot from that experience too. But let's fast forward a long time to 2018. I started really paper cutting again. And at that time, I had just moved here. I was trying to find a job and having a hard time. So I just started making art and people wanted to buy it. So that was great. And then people started asking me if I took commissions, and I was like, sure, I was going to do anything I could to make money at that point. And so I did that for a while. And luckily, nothing super bad happened, but I didn't really have a system down. And I really recommend having a system, which is why I wanted to show y'all what I do for that. I did have an incident eventually where I made something for somebody and then they were like, that's not what I wanted. I'm not going to use that. And it was somebody that I knew and it was really rough. And that was the point when I started charging a commission or a deposit, I mean, for my commissions. And we're going to talk about all that too. But since about probably 2020, I have a system down now that is at this link, and I'm going to show it to you for how I gather information, how I find clients, and how I make things that everybody's happy with. Like for me, the goal of the commission is to make something that both you and your client are truly happy with. All right, try this again. Oh. Okay, so first of all, what is an art commission? You probably know this, that's probably why you're here, but it's just a custom piece of artwork requested by a client, right? So that's different from working for employer, like what I did at Trader Joe's, where I got just sort of a regular corporate boss that was telling me what kind of art to make. This is somebody who like reaches out to you and you make an agreement with them. So common types of commissions include portraits, including pet portraits is a big one. Gifts, people will commission things to give as wedding gifts or birthday gifts or for all sorts of occasions. Also advertising, I've done logos, I've done posters for events, um, things like that. So no matter what you do, I'm definitely focusing this more on visual art because that's what I do. But this could apply to if you make furniture or you make clothes or you make music or anything like that. You can take commissions, and it's great to do because it's additional income, right? Money is always good, especially when you're an artist. But you also expand your portfolio. You end up making things that maybe you wouldn't have made on your own, and that can teach you a lot about what you're good at, what you do or don't like to do. And you're also connecting with clients, hopefully building relationships with clients and expanding your reach. If somebody commissions you for something and they put it on their wall, they might have people over and like, oh wow, that's cool. Who made that? And then you have reached someone else through that. Or if you make a logo or something like that, you can really expand your reach as an artist. Look, my notes are on my phone, so make sure I'm mentioning everything I want to mention here. All right. Listen to it. Excuse me. So the first thing you want to do is figure out how to get clients, right? Um, the key is really advertising yourself. So I recommend having a portfolio of your relevant work. I'm going to show you my website in a minute. Something online, whether it's on your Instagram page or various websites where you can put portfolios, or if you have your own website, which I really recommend if you're becoming more serious as an artist and you want to draw in clients, it's really good to have your own website. And to have when you set up a portfolio, you want to show if you do a range of things, you want to show your range. You want to think about the clients that you want and show examples of the work that would attract those people if that's the kind of thing that you're going for, if you have an ideal client base. Um, and you also just want to showcase your talents, you know? So again, personal website I highly recommend. On my personal website, I have a portfolio, I have a bio, I have my contact info is the big one. I was recently looking at my friend's website, uh, specifically because someone was looking for a commission. That was something that they did. And I was trying to send it to my friend, and I looked at their website and I could not figure out how to actually contact them through their website. I knew how to contact them because I knew them, but I realized that they didn't have it on their website. So definitely have a way for people to contact you. It sounds obvious, but maybe it's not. You can put info about pricing if you want. And I'm going to show you too. I have a commission form on my website, which is something that I highly recommend. Particularly for what I do, I have some sort of specifics about what I need to know before I make a paper cutting for people. So the form helps me get all that information in the initial contact, and that is really helpful. But of course, you need to get people to your website. So social media is a great way to do that. You know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you're good at. But and people can contact you directly on social media too. I actually have something on Facebook. I'm not very active on Facebook, but I have it mostly to manage some of my Instagram things. So I have an response on my Facebook page that if somebody messages me and they use the word commission, it automatically just sends them the commission form on my website. So you can do things like that too. Uh, Word of mouth is helpful. If you, like I said, if you do commissions for people, tell them to tag if they post a picture of it, or tell your friends, or give them extra business cards. I have it on my business card that I do commission work. You know, you just if this is something that you're trying to do more of, you want to just let people know. I sometimes am not accepting commissions. Well, usually at the end of the year, if it's Christmas time, I get my commission schedule is full and I can't take on anymore. So I'll update my website and say that. But when I reopen commissions for the next year, I will make a post on Instagram or whatever and just say commissions open now and put a bunch of pictures of my commissions. Things like that. Like you just have to put it out there. And also if you're appearing in public, if you're at Art Walk or any kind of market situation, or if you have a show somewhere, you can again put it on your business card, let people know, put a little sign on your market table that says accepting, ask me about commissions. Because a lot of times people are really interested in commissioning artists, but they just don't always know how to contact you or approach you or anything like that. So I definitely recommend just letting people know everywhere if you can. Um, while we're on the screen, these are some commissions that I've made. This one is a pet portrait. These are I actually knew this dog. Some really good friends of mine, their dog passed away, and a friend of theirs knew about me through them and contacted me to make that for them as like a surprise. This was this is the logo for Lafayette Tool Exchange. Um, and something that I offer is I make a paper cutting, you get to keep it, and then you also get a digitized version for your logo. So they got that. And this was a wedding gift. Um, and that's the couple. So I do paper portraits sometimes, which that's a whole other thing. Oh, first we go to the portfolio on the website. So I actually have two categories. So if you want to click on commission pieces and gifts. So this is just that was a poster I made for Pride a couple years ago. This is my friend's album cover. Some of these are logos, some of these are just like personal things that people ask me for. Um, but I put all those sort of major categories that I mentioned, like portraits, pet portraits, um, logos, things like that. I have examples of all those. These aren't all the commissions I've ever done, but these are some of my favorites and things that people might be able to relate to when they're looking at me and considering me as someone they might want to commission. So,
Beautiful, Sam.
thank you. I use Squarespace to make my website. It's super easy. I do pay for it because I also have a shop. It's a lot cheaper if you don't have that, but I sell some things and so I have it all in. But I think it's repeating now. Yeah. But yeah, it's great to have some kind of examples of work. Oh, if you go back to the slideshows last minute. Yeah. There we go. So I'm going to show you on my actual website in a minute, but this is what the form looks like. That's on my website. So now you have a client, right? Now, uh, you're gonna want to ask for their contact information so that you can have a conversation with them. I ask for email. I actually it still says required and optional, which is kind of funny. Um, I didn't always require a phone until literally last month because I had an issue where I was going back and forth with a client and she'd sent me a lot of example photos, and then I was trying to email her and her inbox was full and I didn't have any other way to contact her, which was very stressful for me. And luckily, she finally was able to contact me, and then we got a backup email and a phone number. So now I require a phone as well. But it's important for you to be able to contact them. And you also want to establish a clear way for them to reach you. You want to get information about the subject matter. Again, a lot of this really depends what kind of art you do. But you will probably hear something about what they want in their artwork. I want a portrait of my dog. I want a logo for my business, whatever. And you might want to ask them things about style preferences, if there's a range of styles you work in or a range of mediums you work in, the size of the piece, if there's particular colors. Again, a lot of that really depends on what you do, but these are things to just think about when you're figuring out what you want to ask your client when you're working with them. And then there's digital versus traditional art. For digital stuff, you might need to know the resolution, the file format, the dimensions, what they're going to use it for. Uh, You might have things like licensing, depending on what it is. Um, sorry, anything specific to your medium, really. So if you want to go, so I have a commission tab on my website, and this is the link that I'll send to people. So if you scroll down, I have a few examples there. Um, Maybe this looks like a lot of information, but this is what I've decided that I need to give people. So I have information about pricing, which pricing really varies depending on what people want, but I have like a range where I say it starts at $300 because I'm at the point now where I don't have time to do a bunch of like little quick things. Like if I'm going to go through this process with you, I'm probably going to want at least $300. Different people are in different situations. Maybe you can do things that are really fast or really small and you don't charge that much. But I just put that information here and a little bit about how I get to my pricing. I tell them about this list of questions. There's going to be the form there, but I also have a list, a little PDF that you can open that just shows what everything means. Because I have some things that are kind of particular to paper that people might not know what that means when it's in the form. So if you have anything particular about your medium, maybe you want to do something like that. I also let people know about deadlines. I have examples, which is just a link to the gallery we were just looking at. And then if you want to click on the form, I think it just pops up. So I had showed you a little screenshot of it on the thing, but yeah, so I just have their name, their email, their phone. I asked them if they read the thing before because it makes it a lot easier. Subject matter, art size, paper type, colors, when they need it by, if they want it matted or framed, uh, anything. If sometimes it'll be local and I'm delivering it, usually there's some kind of shipping or pickup or something that I need to know about, how they're going to pay me, and then anything else they want to know. And then they hit submit and that goes to my email. Okay, you can go back to the slideshow now. So you don't have to have all this, but this is what I've developed after a few years of it being a lot more casual. And I find that it works really well for me and for my clients because they have an idea of what they're getting before they even talk to me. And I have all the information I need to respond to them when I get that form. So again, another thing I had in there was deadlines. You want to establish a realistic timeline for completing your project. Uh, you might have rush fees. Usually I can't do things super last minute, but when I do, I usually charge a bit more, and people are usually fine with paying more if they need something really fast. And also just scheduling. I'm working on a really big commission right now, and I had someone reach out to me in the middle of, at the beginning of that process, and I knew this one was going to take me a while. And luckily, she didn't have a specific deadline, so we ended up talking for a while, and she paid her deposit, and that basically like saved her spot in my schedule to work on after I complete this other one. So you can do it like that too. You want to figure out shipping or delivery, like I mentioned. Uh, Obviously, if you're doing digital work, that's usually just emailing it, but it might be a factor of what kind of file it is, if you have to do like a Google Drive or something like that. Sometimes I'm dealing with people that aren't so good at using the internet, but they still want digital files. So sometimes you want to figure that out ahead of time. And also you want to take into account shipping accounts or delivery arrangements for physical work. I use ShipStation, which is about $10 a month. Um, and it's a way to print postage at home, but you also get big discounts on things like UPS. And I think also even the post office stuff is cheaper sometimes. And so I'll just type in their address and a guesstimate of how much it's going to weigh. All my work is, it's really if it's framed or not. I can usually reasonably estimate the weight and the size, and I'll give them an idea of what shipping is going to cost when I quote them. And then you're going to want to agree on a price before starting, which I'll talk about that in a minute. And we're also going to talk about deposits. And you will also want to discuss how you will accept payment. I'm the kind of person where if you want to pay me, I'm going to figure out how to accept it. But if you only have Venmo or something, you need to let them know that. And these are all things that you want to discuss at the beginning. And make sure, like, don't start doing any work until you know this. Yeah.
So you're saying that you don't include shipping in the price of your work originally? You kind of let them know that after you figured everything out?
I don't include it in my price. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
It really depends on what you make also. Usually, like if somebody is getting something small that's not framed, it may like it's not going to cost me that much to ship, so maybe I'll include it. But most of the work that I end up doing commissions for is larger and frame, and that costs at least like $30, usually more than that. So I'll just give them an estimate of that and add that to their quoted price.
Okay.
But again, a lot of this is sort of dependent on what you're doing. So pricing your work, that's always a challenge for artists. I'm still not the best at it, probably. But the things that I consider when I'm creating a quote. So basically where we're at now. So I get the client, they fill out my form, or even if I talk to someone, or like I said on Facebook, I have that auto thing. I always make people fill out the form, even if it's my best friend who wants something, because that also just helps me stay organized. And then I have this list I can refer to with everything that they wanted. So when I so I get that list, sometimes from that list I can quote them. A lot of times I have to respond to them, and I'll always like include the list in like the email so they can see what they wrote also. And I'll usually go back and forth a little bit if I need to know anything else. And then I'll get to the point where I quote them. And the way that I quote them is I consider the time. Maybe you have an hourly wage that you want to pay yourself. Maybe it really depends on the nature of your work or the nature of the project, how much time it's going to take me is something I think about. Also, the complexity is something that really matters to me. There's some things I can do really quickly and some things that take a really long time in my medium. You might want to consider your expertise and skill level. I charge more now than I did when I first started. And part of that too is when you're not getting a lot, you might charge less. I do give discounts to my friends still. You can have things like that you do. But as time goes on, I definitely charge more. You want to consider the size, the medium, any extra services, whether that's framing. For me, I charge them the cost of the frame. A lot of times I have to order custom frames for my commissions, so I just charge them whatever that costs. I don't add anything for the actual framing, but you might want to do that. Like I said, I charge separately for shipping. You might have, you might want to let them know when you quote them if you charge for revisions or anything that they might change later. You can also consider the client budget. Sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, I'm trying to make a living, but I also want my art to be accessible to people. So if it's something that's getting a bit pricier, what they're asking for, sometimes I'll just ask them what their budget is, and we'll try to work together to find something that they want and that I can make for that amount of money. So, and you can have a sort of formula for your pricing too. I've seen, I forget who it was. There's somebody, a couple holiday seasons ago, and she was offering like holiday portraits, like drawings. I think it was Hannah Gumbo. And she had like a price for like the couple. And then if you added like another person, like a kid or somebody, it was like a certain amount per person and like an amount per pet or something. So you could have sort of formulas like that that you use too, depending on what you do. But when you're creating your quote, you want to be clear and transparent with the client about what's included. We'll talk about contracts and invoices in a minute. I don't always really do that, but I still list it for them in an email. Like, this is how much labor and supplies is. This is how much shipping is. This is how much your frame is. Things like that. We just talked about like the tiered pricing or additional fees. They're just all things that I would consider. And then when you're accepting payments, uh, I again highly recommend deposits. That situation that I kind of mentioned earlier, I had gone, I didn't have the form, I don't think yet, but I had gone through the process where I found out what they wanted. It was also supposed to be for an album cover, so I thought that I was also going to get some sort of exposure from this, but they were also paying me money. I don't usually work just for exposure, and I do not recommend that. But I hadn't asked for a deposit up front. Thankfully, it was somebody I knew, and when I made the piece, and then they were like, "That wasn't really what I was thinking at all," and like he had basically disregarded the whole process that I go through for a reason, and I always sketch everything out. So before I start cutting paper, it's been decided, and he approved my sketch, and apparently, and then seemed surprised when he saw the piece. So it was not great. But thankfully, he did pay me some money, but I didn't make as much money as I should have. And also, if this had been a client that wasn't somebody I knew, maybe I would have gotten no money. So from then on, no matter who you are, if you're family, friends, I don't care. Everybody pays 50% upfront. It doesn't have to be 50%. It's usually somewhere between like 20 and 30%. But it protects you. And it also, I think, is good for the client too. They feel like they've invested something. They feel like, they're letting it know that they're serious about missioning you. And then, so for me, yeah, I'll go through that email situation. I will quote them. They almost always agree on the quote, usually, because at that point we've had enough conversation that they're kind of expecting it. And then I'll say, oh, all right. So if this quote is good with you, you owe this much, which is 50%. And at that point, I will get started. I really, I cannot stress enough, like do as little as possible until you get some money. That is, I feel very strongly about that. Because sometimes people will kind of come to you with ideas and they'll be kind of wishy-washy and then it won't happen. And I used to be like, I would sketch something out and I would like try to advertise myself to them. But now, until you pay the deposit, you don't really get anything but the conversation. And you can decide, I also let them know like the rest is due when it's done before I ship it. So whatever your art form is, you can decide when the rest of the money is due. And you can also do payment installments, different things like that. Again, you don't have to do exactly what I do, but these are just things that you really want to consider. You want to let them know, you want to find out how they're going to pay. I accept PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. I'll do bank transfers, invoices sometimes. You can do invoices through PayPal and through QuickBooks. Uh, Cash, I probably have to like know you. I don't accept cash from, and most of these are done online, so I'm not accepting just cash to the mail or something. But cash is nice. And again, some people will want an invoice, or maybe you want to always invoice people, and there's different apps that you can use to do that, which invoice is just basically you. saying all those things I was talking about in an email in a more formal way and being like, you owe me this much money, yes, and I'm paying it, hopefully. You do want to have some kind of plan for what to do with the client disputes a payment or try to cancel a payment. Thankfully, I've never had that happen, but I just wanted to put that in there. You want to kind of just have a plan for whatever. But the nice thing about the deposit is if they don't pay you, you haven't done anything. Or it was working when I pointed it this way. It's not working anyway. Thank you. So I think I would probably recommend creating some kind of contract or agreement, even though it's something that I don't always do. I don't do it in the most formal sense. I'm more doing it through, I like to do this over email, so I sort of have a a digital paper trail. But you, no matter what you're doing, you want to establish clear expectations. And you also, if I will actually write up a contract if I'm doing a logo or something like that that they're going to use. And usually for those situations, the only rights that I reserve for myself is to put it on my website or be able to like be like, hey, I did this, and then they can use it for whatever they. And I don't own it anymore. But whatever your commission is, if there's some ownership issue, you want to clarify all that at the beginning. So you can put things like you can describe the work, you can put the timeline, the delivery methods, all the things we just talked about, the payment terms, the deposits, refunds, final payment. If you have a revision policy, I I let you have endless revisions on the sketch, but once you approve the sketch, I'm gonna make the paper cutting and I don't want you to revise it at that point. Uh, if you have cancellation terms, you can put that in there. If you have any copyright or usage rights, you can put all that in your agreement. Too fast. I guess I'll just stop for a minute. Does anybody have any questions so far? Just spewing through a lot of information rather quickly, but and we'll have time in the end too for questions.
Question. If it's someone who's just starting out as an artist, like, you talked a lot about website, and the importance of having a website. Um, what would you recommend as a, best bang for your buck starter website host?
So, what I did at the very beginning, what I did at the very beginning is not even but I used to use Square, which is a payment thing because I also had like a little shop and they offered like a free website through that, but it was pretty limiting to me. But it was free. But unfortunately, I don't think they do that anymore. WordPress is free, but you have to do a lot on the back end. You have to probably learn some HTML at least. I don't really know a lot of coding, but I've been able to have WordPress sites. But you can sort of do endless things with WordPress without paying money. You have to pay for your domain name if you have one, but that's usually like $5 a year or something. It's very cheap to have a domain name. If you have to pay for hosting, um, I don't even know what that costs these days. But you can even like if you're starting out and you just have a good Facebook page, that's really enough. As long as you have contact info and pictures of your work and information about who you are and what you do, like you can just do that on social media. But I do recommend, getting a website. I wish I had more information about it. Uh, you can just, Google like cheap website providers. They kind of change all the time. I don't think it's very expensive to have a basic Squarespace account, and I feel like every podcast at some point is offering like code to get something free for Squarespace. I'm paying about $300 a year for my website, but that's only because I am I have like the merchant account so that I can sell things. So if you're not doing that, you can, use Etsy or whatever for that. I kind of hate Etsy, but I have it. Oh yeah, Shopify is a big one. So there's different options for that. This is just what I decided was easiest for me. And I found it very easy to build a website that looks really nice.
You
Yeah.
didn't tell us what it was though, did you?
Squarespace.
Okay, so it's,
Yeah.
okay.
But I don't know what it costs for their basic plan, but it's not nearly as much as I'm paying if you don't have the whole shop on there.
We do have a question from the chat.
Oh, sure.
Has there ever been an encounter where a client refused to pay the final payment? What would you do in that situation?
I thankfully have never had that situation. I'm at the point now where after they pay the deposit, I sketch everything out in color on my iPad. And depending on the client, I might get to the point where I'm making something that looks a lot like what I'm about to create with paper. So if they're okay with that, they're usually okay with the uh, final product. But you know, I would not ship it to them if they didn't pay this. It would be a bummer if I spent all that time working on something that they didn't want to pay me for. But I don't actually give it to them until they've paid me. I guess they're trusting me to actually send it to them after they pay me, but I've never run into that, thankfully. But like I'll usually send them a picture of it before I send it to them. And usually people are just excited. But I guess if that happened to me, I, I would just not give them what I made, and I at least made half the money, you know. So you're always taking a risk when you do any kind of work like this, but yeah, maybe I've just been lucky. I mean, usually if people are gonna pay a deposit, they're going to be serious about it. It might be an incident like if I made something and then they were like, "Oh, I really want you to change something," then I would charge them more for that. Charge them for the revision because I go through a process to try to prevent that. But if they didn't want to pay anything at all, they just wouldn't get it, then I would just something. So hopefully that answers that question. But again, you can decide what you want to do about that. It's something to think about. But hopefully it won't happen to you. Usually when you start out, it's going to be people that you know somehow. It was exciting to me the first time I got a commission. I couldn't figure out how they found, because usually it was like a friend or a friend of a friend or something like that. Or it's a lot of times they would tell me, like, I'm friends with this person. And I saw your piece at their house and I want to commission you, whatever. And then after a while, it became like people would find me. They're a lot of times people find me personally because they are searching for Wycinanki, they're Polish. I get a lot of clients like that. Both the commissions I'm working on right now are Polish people that wanted something. This is the Polish folk art. So that's how they found me. So if you have some kind of niche or something special about what you do, use the SEO, put that all over your website or put it all over your social media, use the hashtags. Actually, like I wear this shirt because this was actually a commission that I did. I didn't get paid for this one. It was a donation. That's probably the only donation I did, but it was for a good cause. But this Arsh Fiader, who's a fashion designer in New York, he's from Poland and he's gay, and he bought some of my art and then called me and told me that he's working on this project for Warsaw House, which is a Polish organization that's serving the LGBT community there. Things are really bad for the community in Poland. And so he was doing an event. He wanted me to make some art for a T-shirt that they were selling like for $100 a pop. They got like an event in New York to raise money for this organization. So I got a free T-shirt, but Again, I usually wouldn't do things for like free or exposure, but this was something I chose to do because it was for a good cause. And so I worked with him and I made this design. So yeah, like he found me because he was searching like Instagram for Vichinaki and queer or gay or something. Like I was just using hashtags and yeah, if we put those two words together, it's really narrow it down. There's really like maybe a couple other people in the universe doing that. So that's how he found me, just through social media or maybe my website, but just because I had like these keywords. So, you know, and that was like super cool. Like, yeah, you know. So just again, when we were talking in the beginning about putting yourself out there, even like little things like just hashtags and stuff like that can help people find you. All right. So now the fun part, which is working with client feedback. I highly recommend checking in regularly with the client. So for me, that's at the beginning, we have that conversation. Then I start sketching. Some clients for me will be like, do whatever you want. Some people want to be surprised, but I usually sort of give them some kind of visual idea of where I'm going so that I don't do work and then they hate it. I am currently dealing with a client that has added a lot of things. Like this is in the sketch process. She added a lot of family members, so she sent me a lot of pictures, like family members she wanted depicted in this scene, and then she wanted to add some people. And she actually was great because she offered to pay me more when she started adding stuff. I didn't have to address it. So that was great. But you can always, you know, if somebody starts changing the scope of what you agreed on when you quoted them, you can definitely be like, I'm only gonna do that if you think this is more. Like you're in control there. So, and it's good to get feedback. Again, this really depends on what you do. Maybe you do something where it's kind of obvious what you're going to do and you just go for it. But I just, yeah, my method for what I do is making them a sketch on the iPad. So I'm not really spending any money or using materials to make it, and I can really easily make revisions. And I get it to the point they want it. Like this client that I'm looking for right now, it has been really particular about stuff. Not in a problematic way, but just in a way where we're going back and forth like so much and sending so many pictures that it apparently overloaded her email and her email inbox was full. But most clients are somewhere in between not caring and caring a lot. They'll usually maybe have a few things. But again, if you want to avoid a situation where someone's like, I hate it and I don't want to pay you, it's good to just communicate. Or you can give them options too if you're doing a logo. Like sometimes I'll make different options. Uh, Common technique is to make a couple options and include one that you kind of hate to make the other ones look better, but then you always risk them choosing that one. But you know, you can request feedback from them early in the process so that you haven't spent too much time or effort yet when you're getting that feedback. But something I also really want everyone to think about is you need to trust yourself as an artist. That can be hard to do, especially early on. But you have to realize that they commissioned you. They saw something in what you do that they want. So know your strengths and know why they might have chosen for you. And you can also advocate for your work. I had a situation, I wish I had a picture of it. I don't even think it's on my website, but this woman was Polish and her last name meant nettle, like the plant. So she wanted something with nettles, but she had like a lot of different things that she wanted in this art piece. And I don't know if you've ever been to a tattoo shop or talked to tattoo artists, but there's usually, if you're waiting there for a tattoo, there's always somebody that comes up and starts describing what they want for their tattoo. And it's usually their first tattoo, and they want everything they've ever thought of in one tattoo. And a good artist will not do that because that's not going to look good. And that is true for the kind of art I do too. If you put everything you can think of that's meaningful to you in one art piece, it's gonna look a mess. Actually, it was probably the second commission I ever did for paper cutting when I first started taking commissions. There's somebody I worked with a long time ago. Um, and it had like some scenery from somewhere that she lived. There was like her cat was in it. There was a couple other things. It was like a gift for her partner, and it had a lot of things that was meaningful to them. And I think she liked it, but I probably have a picture of it somewhere, but like I never wanted to look at it again. I honestly hated it because it wasn't like my art. And it didn't look like Vichinaki even to me. It was just kind of like a bunch of stuff in one art piece. And again, I really hope she likes it. But I learned something from that experience, which was to trust myself. So when I was dealing with this other woman with the nettles, we went back and forth and we ended up at some point I was just like, what if I do this? And I did something that was very a lot of Vichinaki has a lot of repetition and a lot of symmetry. And so it was like very simple, like a circle with like repeating patterns with the nettles in it and some certain colors that she wanted. And it was a lot more simple than what she originally wanted, but it had like the core elements of what she was looking for, which was that skill I was talking about at the beginning and like figuring out what people really want. Because a lot of times people are not good at talking about it. And also just trusting myself and why she chose me. And she ended up loving it. But I remember feeling a little nervous to like go in sort of a different direction and just be like, what if we do this? And so that's another skill to build up and just trusting yourself and knowing what your strengths are as an artist and why someone might have selected you and advocate for yourself. If somebody's really trying to get you to do something that, I mean, if somebody's trying to get you to make something that just isn't your thing, you can always tell them no. I would hope you would figure that out before they get a deposit. Otherwise, you might have a situation on your hands. But, you know, like you you are the artist. Like you have artistic control. You should have artistic control in this process and encourage your clients to trust you. I've had multiple times where I was like, we're gonna do it this. Sometimes it's literally an issue with paper for my art, where like I'm like, this won't look good because of my medium. Or maybe like it's a color thing or something like that. And I'll show them in a sketch how much it won't work. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, I see what you mean. I should have trusted you. So, you know, advocate for yourself. Again, when it comes to revisions, you can decide if you want to limit it. You can decide what part in the process they're allowed to revise things. You can decline excessive changes. Again, if they exceed the scope of the agreement, then it's going to be like, you have to pay more or I'm not going to do it. That's how it would be for me. If someone's like, actually, I want it to be like twice the size, then there's going to be a discussion about money. Or maybe I don't have time to do that about that. So you can decide all those things. Hopefully you won't deal with difficult clients, but try to stay professional, even if they're not. That when I talked about being 19 and making those menu boards. So this guy he gave me a pile of notebook paper that had his menu written on it. He had quite a lot of options. His business did not last very long. But it was not written in a consistent way. Some things were just like, burger, cheese, meat, pickle, mustard. And then other things were like very descriptive. And so I basically was like, I can't put this on a menu, like it won't make any sense. There's no consistency to it. So I reformatted this guy's menu for him for free. Don't do that. I was 19. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like working for Trader Joe's. So I was used to just like working on the clock. And yeah, like I don't remember what I charged him, but it was like almost nothing for the amount of work I ended up doing. I was working for this guy for months. He kept adding things, changing things, had me do all this stuff. Like literally the boys were calling this business and his like wife picked me up from work. It was in the town that I was working near. And like I came on a lunch break to like change something on a chalkboard, like right before they opened and stuff like that. And he wasn't paying me extra for any of that. And then I actually like moved from the suburbs to the city. Uh, I'm from the Chicago area, and he wanted me to come change one more thing. And I just told him no. Like I was like, I didn't have a car. I was like, I can't even get there. Like I can't do it. And he sent me the rudest email I've probably ever gotten. It was just like he just like changed, and it was written very badly, but also just like very mean and acting like I had been difficult and really, I had done all these things for him for free. So I did respond to it, but I was just like very chill. Like you just have to be above it. But again, I'm teaching you all these things so that hopefully you won't ever get to that point with anybody. But I mean, there may be a point if you have to walk away from somebody, but or at least deny a certain aspect if they're trying to add things on. But
What kind of red flags do you look for? Is there some people where they might do something that's kind of indicative of they're gonna be
I mean, if they're trying to change something major about what we agreed on, then I would definitely like slow down and ask some questions to figure out what's happening. You know, again, before I started taking a deposit, I would have been more worried about that. Now that I have the deposit, I at least have some money. And usually people won't do that unless they're kind of serious. I guess it depends how much money you're talking. But if people are paying you like $150, they're probably not going to be too weird after that, hopefully.
Well, I only say this because I had one and it's the bad one. And it was like, got through the entire process. And then after I received full payment, I got emails that it should be free because I suck. And this was really good practice for me. So since I was able to let them practice, then they should get the artwork for free. And it was just kind of like, I was like, I really needed to pick up on this before I started working with this person.
Yeah.
Because it was just like a long list of all of these major infractions. Like my paint was in a Gatorade lid instead of an actual paint receptacle. And so it's just evident that I don't know what I'm doing and that kind of thing. And so really, and maybe that's too much information, but really what I'm just trying to do is like, how do you find like clues about these people early in the process? So you
Did
don't
you
sign
feel
up
like
for
there
this?
were any, like in retrospect, that there were any red flags?
I couldn't figure it out until the very end. That was like why I asked the question.
Did
Really.
you keep the money?
Oh yeah, I kept it.
Okay.
I
I mean, that's the thing is like that sucks and that's kind of bizarre, but again, that's why you do the deposit and that's why
Okay.
like you get payment and
You just have to deal with
you
that
can
kind of
sort
stuff.
of reiterate that that's non-refundable, especially if they have it,
Yeah.
I mean, I sold a camera on eBay once and it got to them and then they did like a chargeback on PayPal and I had to like fight PayPal to like get my money or to like,
Have you ever
You know.
tried to grab money back from?
I've never had that happen for commissions, thankfully, but like people will do weird things. I mean, it's extra unfortunate that people will like try to scam artists that are making
Well,
something.
Yeah, and I guess that's really the thing that I'm more worried about is like I think that this person was trying to scam me into
Right.
getting something for free,
Right.
and I guess that's what I'm kind of worried about, especially going out on the internet and trying to get people with like, because I heard that they can like Venmo can call you back or something like that, and
Yeah, I will say with Venmo, this is like unrelated to that issue, but Venmo now requires you to have a business profile if you're making money through your business. And if they feel that you're using a personal account, you have it like I log into the same one, but I have like a drop down list of like my personal and then like my business one.
yeah,
They only started this in the last couple of years. It used to kind of be a free for all. But if they if I'm assuming it's all bots, but if they think that you're doing business transactions on them on a personal account, they will take your money. So,
They'll take your money?
yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I don't recommend trying to, I don't know how they detect it. But when I'm taking commissions, I always give them my business Venmo for that reason. That's a good thing to know about Venmo, because it wasn't always that. But yeah.
If you were to sort of walk away from a difficult client before the full deposit or full price was paid, would you then refund the deposit or what would you do then?
I guess it would depend. If I was like really early in the process and just sort of like sketching, and then you were like, no, I might refund them. I mean, I present it as non-refundable, but I guess maybe depending on the situation. Like, it was a friend of mine and they were like, I just had my house burned down and I can't afford it. And I was like, here you go. So there's something to be obvious. But that's like what a deposit is for you to have something for your effort, but also for them to like show that they're serious. So if we got to, they had already paid a deposit and we're in the next phase and they were changing the scope and they don't want to pay more, and I felt like I had to walk away, then I would keep the deposit. And it's good to like establish that deposit as non-refundable.
You still pay work. So.
Right, yeah. So, but again, these are things that are really like up to you and depending on your business, but you want to sort of have a plan for them. Hopefully, these things won't happen to you. They do happen. Um, People are weird. The internet is wild, but like lately, I actually put a CAPTCHA on that commission form. I never had this problem until like 2 months ago. I started getting like spam filling out my form, which sucks because you see the email like a new commission request has come in, and I get excited and I click on it, and then it's like, go to this website and get free whatever, like in every line or something, and you're like, oh. But I put the captcha on and I haven't got any more because I got like 3 or 4 like in the last couple months, and then I changed it. So like again, like the whole process of having the form though, like you can tell if a spam bot filled it out or a real person filled it out. Like, make them do a little bit of work to like get the process started and then make them pay money. And then at the very least you have that money. And yeah, for your situation, I don't know. Like, I guess I would be a little worried that they were going to try to like slander me all over the place or something, but and then you would have to deal with that. But I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about the bad things happening. As long as you really just are really clear about your agreement, whether that's in a formal writing or just an email thread, you take screenshots, just keep track of all that. Sometimes people want to talk on the phone to describe what they want, and that's fine. But when it comes to business stuff, I'm going to do that over email or text or something that I can actually like take a screenshot and have. So you just want to do a number of things to just like protect your money, basically. But it is just good to know that you can make decisions if you come up with these weird situations. But I don't want to like scare you or anything. Most the like maybe I'm just lucky, but the by far most of the commissions I've ever done have been great experiences, especially as I got better at it and I figured out the system. It's been pretty smooth since then for me. And usually people are very happy with what I make because they knew what to expect the whole time. So I hope that answers your questions. A lot of it's really case by case basis. So that was the bulk of the presentation. But again, to the things that I really want you to remember, which we kind of just went over some of that right now, is just the clear communication, pricing fairly, and I mean that for you mostly, what's fair to you. Like, really don't, if you're about to charge something and you're like, man, this sucks, like this, I don't feel like this is enough, then charge more. And you also want to, I early on when I started, I was more like desperate and I just kind of didn't care if I made a lot of money. Like I just needed to make some money. But it's really good to have a more a mindset of, like I'm worth it and I will find the clients that will pay me what I'm worth for what I'm doing. You don't want to undersell yourself. And then again, protecting your rights, which you can do with all the things that I just went over. And again, the goal is to create a work that both you and the client are happy with. I want to like what I make. Like I mentioned that one where I never want to see it again. I don't want to feel that way after I complete something. Sometimes I make stuff that isn't something I would ever have made on my own, but I still want to feel proud of it and also feel like I got the money that I deserve and that it's something true to what I do that they chose me for. And when you do that, they tend to be happier with it also. And that's really just another way of saying that, balancing client satisfaction with professional boundaries. You know, early on, I was like a little too concerned with the client satisfaction to the point where I didn't have any boundaries and I was really ripping myself off. So don't do that. Don't rewrite someone's menu for food. And you will,
You just kind of framing the context of the agreement. When you're trying to kind of build things in.
yeah, like, again, it kind of depends on what you're doing, but if there's a bunch of additional work that wasn't suggested in the original conversation, then you want to have some kind of plan or some kind of like stated, like, this is what I will do about revisions or changes to the project.
Okay, thank you.
It's just really just about communication. And you will refine your process over time. I did not start out doing all this. And I, learned a lot. But and like those skills of like interpreting what people are saying or maybe looking out for clients that are going to be problematic and stuff like that. A lot of that is just something that you learn over time. But I'm at the point now where I've been consistently taking commissions for like 7 years. Like it's a big part of what I do. So that's why I came up here to talk to you all about it. And yeah, trust yourself and your expertise. I think that's just so important as an artist in general, but especially when someone's hiring you to make something. And the good news is you're hopefully building lasting relationships with clients. I've had numerous people commission me and then commission me again, and sometimes another. Like I've definitely had repeat clients or connected clients where, they're friends that commission. So when you go through all this and make them let them know that they're important and that you're considering them, you're building a relationship, hopefully, and that can actually really pay off. I have a QR code here, which is slightly obscured by this. I don't know. But that is this presentation. Oh, like when it's slightly obscured. Oh, there you go. So they're actually doing. Let's go to 7.
It can go longer for
That's fine.
It's kind of.
So yeah, we have like 15 minutes or so if you want to ask me more questions.
So I imagine this might be a whole nother these questions. I don't want you to get into too much detail if you don't feel comfortable, but I've been hoping to try and take on more commissions to the point to where I can supplement some of my income. And one of my major barriers has been being afraid of going legit. I've tried asking people, but a lot of times people are very hesitant to give financial advice. And so I don't really want to like, how do you do this? But what do people do when they make enough money that they have to report it to taxes? Do they
Oh,
have a business that they like how things go to, or?
yeah, like I'm actually looking for an alternative because it's gotten really expensive since I started using it. But I'm using QuickBooks Self-Employed, which doesn't even exist in that way. They call it something else now. I'm kind of like grandfathered into that. But you want to have some, like I'm also selling stuff for my website or at Art Walk or whatever. So it's not I have like my day job, but I'm making enough money that I do have to report it. So I keep track of it and you have to pay taxes on it. Yeah.
So do you file as a sole proprietor or do you have an LLC?
I'm sole proprietor. So yeah, because I don't even know that much about LLCs. That probably is another presentation, but I haven't had to do that.
Like a different kind of like a different tax form, or is it?
Yeah, it is. But you use like your social security number instead of like an EIN because you're not an employer really. You're employing yourself. But yeah, like I keep track of my finances, but I also keep track of all the money I spend, and you can write that off. But I am not great with that stuff, which is why I use QuickBooks to manage all that. My boyfriend is a CPA and he kind of hates those things, but I I I am not the type of person that is gonna spend all the time like figuring all that out. I just don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So I just use that. I can categorize all my purchases as like business or personal. I have like all my different like my PayPal and my bank account and things like that. A lot of sales on my website people use PayPal for, so like all that is connected. And yeah, I just keep track of it. But there's different apps. I've been actually like looking up to find an alternative because QuickBooks has gotten very, very expensive. But there's nowadays like so many different apps if you just look for them to manage your finances of a self-employed person. But yeah, you do have to pay taxes if you make over $600 from any particular source. And it's good. I do quarterly taxes, so you can pay it quarterly, which makes it a lot more manageable. Again, I do that all through QuickBooks, but there's other things that you can use. But it is scary, but if you're trying to make a significant amount of your income from doing it, it's just something you have to deal with. And like something too is like you can like there's processing fees on almost anything you're gonna get paid for, and those add up. So you can also factor that into your pricing. That was something I forgot to mention. Because man, the processing fees on PayPal and all those things, they will really add up. So yeah, there's all sorts of like little things like that, but you can write off, you can write off the payment for the app that you're using, all your supplies and stuff like that. If you want to keep track of that too, if you have a home office, you can get a certain amount of discount for that. So yeah.
But this helps so much. It's been such a hard thing to ask, and every time I've asked people about commissions, whenever I get to this question, they're like, I don't actually.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I went to one of these talks that my friends did about um putting art in an exhibition, and like I've done that, but I just sort of like figured it out on my own, and I learned so much from your presentation, and I was like, you know what, I do all the commissions. I could do a whole presentation on what I learned about commissions. So that is the idea. I'm really grateful for the ACA for letting me, do this. Um I kind of realized when I went to that presentation that I've actually learned a lot and that I have a process that I really, really like. Um, so feel free to, yeah, if you want to do a form exactly like I did, well, it won't be exactly like I have because you probably don't need to ask if the paper is glossy or not. But you know, I highly recommend that kind of method or something like that, where even if you're just emailing a set of questions to answer, um, I've really had a lot of success with that technique. I don't even know how I figured that out. I think I was just sick of asking the same questions all the time, so I just put it on my website. But, yeah. Does anybody on Zoom have questions?
No questions. We'll say thank you very much.
Wow, thank you for
This was great.
attending.